of sick leave and say, I am ill. I will be taking sick leave. You need to say, that's okay. Thanks for letting me know. And when they come back, they need to fill in a leave form, and that leave form needs to be approved. Only someone with authority can approve. So no messages should be sent with colleagues or calls to the receptionist. The receptionist cannot give you, cannot approve your leave. So you can't phone her and tell her that you are sick. And after 2 continuous days, you have to bring a medical certificate. And this is a very important clause that a lot of employers are not aware of. If you've been absent for more than 2 occasions in 8 weeks, you must bring a medical certificate on the first day. Okay. Medical certificates must be issued by a registered medical practitioner. They must contain a practice number, a phone number, and a physical address. They must be issued going forward, not in retrospect. So you can't go to the doctor on Friday and be booked off from the previous Monday. It doesn't work like that. It must not state, I was informed. The doctor must certify that in their medical opinion, this person is incapacitated due to illness or injury, not to collect repeat scripts. So going to the clinic or going to the chemist to go and fetch your chronic medication is not a medical certificate. A medical certificate means that you are too ill to work, not that you've gone to fetch medicine. Okay, so be aware of that. And it can be rejected if not compliant. So employers, you can reject a medical certificate if all of this stuff is not in place. And please make sure that you verify medical certificates. I see a lot of fraudulent medical certificates. There's people at taxi ranks and at shopping malls who walk around with books of medical certificates and sell them for like $100 or $200. So you must verify the medical certificate. You must phone and you must ask the doctor to confirm that they saw the person on which date and for how long they've been booked off, because also a lot of employees will change a 1 into a 7 and things like that and give themselves extra time off. So it's absolutely imperative to confirm every medical certificate. Employees who want to take sick leave must contact the manager at the start of their shift. They must personally speak to the manager. No messages left with colleagues. They must request permission to be away. They must inform the manager every day of the status of their illness. I'm still sick. I'm not coming to work today. And then they must obtain a medical certificate when required. Must complete a sick leave form on their return from their illness. Employers must verify all medical certificates, speak to the doctor to confirm the visit, check the practice number and details on the Health Professions Council website, because that very often they steal practice numbers, they create fake medical certificates. So you check the practice number on the Health Professions Council website. It will spit out the doctor's name and their physical location and their phone number. And then you check that those details are the same as on the medical certificate. Check the location on Google Street View. And this might sound a bit extreme, but I once did that. Medical certificate said the doctor was on the 10th floor of a specific building, and when I checked Google Street View, the building in question only had 2 stories. So the guy literally went into the sky to see the doctor. And only approve sick leave once this verification is done. You have the legal right to first verify before you just approve the sick leave. If it's not legit, sick leave is unpaid, and then also it becomes unauthorized absenteeism, which is a form of misconduct and can have disciplinary hearing consequences. As I said, family responsibility leave only after 4 months of service. It's an annual cycle and it doesn't carry over. If you don't use it, it falls away. It's only paid if proof is provided. And as I said, birth of a child, illness of a child, or death of a first-line relative. First-line relative is your spouse or life partner, your parent or adoptive parent, grandparent, child or adoptive child, grandchild, and sibling. There's no aunties and uncles and that kind of thing included in family responsibility leave. Now we get to the complicated new addition to the law, parental leave. And those are maternity leave, which has always been around, parental leave, adoption leave, and commissioning parental leave. Maternity leave is for pregnant mothers who are about to or have given birth, although that might change in the near future, because there's been a constitutional court ruling that it is discriminatory to just refer to mothers. So in future, maternity leave might get a different name, and it would be for one of the parents, not necessarily just for the mother. Although the law hasn't changed yet, just know that it is coming. There will be a change. It's 4 months of unpaid leave, starting up to 4 weeks before the birth and ending not before six weeks after the birth. And obviously the mother can claim UIF for the unpaid period of leave. And the employee must inform the company at least 1 month before, and so that means that there is no obligation on a mother to inform you that she's pregnant until it's 1 month before the expected due date. You don't have that right, employers, and there's no obligation on any lady to tell you that she's pregnant. She has to state when she will commence maternity leave, and she cannot return within 6 weeks after unless a doctor okays it in writing. So if a lot of people need to come back soon because they can't afford to be on unpaid leave for 4 months, but before 6 weeks, you need a doctor's note stating that you're okay to return to work. Then in the case of a stillbirth or a miscarriage in the final trimester, you're also entitled to your 4 months maternity leave. Parental leave is for the other parent who's not on maternity leave. So it's for your own child or the adoption of a child. It's 10 days unpaid. You can claim UIF, and it starts, this is important, it starts on the day of the birth. You can't wait 4 months and then take your parental leave. This law is specific. You must take your parental leave for 10 days starting on the day that the child is born. You must inform the company at least 1 month before when you will be taking your parental leave. Adoption leave. This is for the adoption of a child of up to 2 years old. It's 10 consecutive weeks, and only one of the parents adopting can take this. So I don't know how employers are going to figure out who's taking which type of leave if the people work for different companies. But in any event, the law specifies that one parent takes adoption leave for 10 weeks and the other parent takes normal parental leave for 10 days. It's unpaid, but you can claim UIF, and you must notify the company at least 1 month before you take this leave. Commissioning parental leave is due to the commissioning of a surrogacy agreement. So when you are going to have someone else carrying your baby for you, and then you're going to become the parent once the baby is born. And also commissioning parental leave, one of the parents takes 10 consecutive weeks, and the other parent takes normal parental leave for 10 days. So the parents have to decide who's going to take what. You can claim UIF, and you must notify the company at least 1 month before when you're going to be taking this type of leave.
Hi.
Other types of leave. Other types of leave are not regulated by law. What I haven't mentioned here is not in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. But by agreement between employer and employee, you can add any types of leave or add extra leave. There should be a policy to ensure clarity and consistency. What are the rules of these leaves? This leave, how do you take it? Who qualifies? That kind of thing. And examples are study leave, unpaid leave, or special leave. Now we get to notice periods and termination, and also bearing in mind if you fall under a bargaining council, this might be different. So in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, if you've worked for less than 6 months, you get 1 week's notice. 6 months to 1 year is 2 weeks notice, and more than a year is 4 weeks notice. Also bearing in mind that you can do payment in lieu of notice, which means that if your employee is resigned, you can tell them, I don't need you to work your notice period. You can go away immediately, and then you have to pay them for the notice period. Also in reverse, and that's what I put in my clients' employment contracts, if the employee doesn't want to work the whole notice period, they then have to pay you in lieu of notice. But that doesn't apply unless the parties have agreed to it in the employment contract upfront. But that helps with employees who just up and leave, give immediate resignations and that kind of thing, leaving the employer in the lurch. Then you need to be aware that there are sectoral determinations and bargaining councils which vary all of these terms and conditions in different ways. These are regulations for specific industries, For example, the hospitality, the restaurant and catering, agriculture, and mining, metal industries, all of those have different bargaining councils. They can set different minimum wages and conditions, and thus you must check if you fall under these. There's even a sectoral determination for domestic workers. So domestic workers have a slightly different set of terms and conditions. So if you have a domestic worker, it's important to know the specific rules and to have your domestic worker employment contract in place, which I can provide for you. So let us know if you need one of those. The enforcement of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act is done through the Department of Employment and Labour, who have inspectors. And a lot of you may have had these people. What they do at the moment, they used to just show up, and then people say, you don't have a meeting, I will not meet with you, whatever. Then they started letting you know in advance that they're coming. Then they started letting you know in advance that they're coming and giving you like a tick list of things that they are going to be checking so that you can be properly prepared. And these days, what I see them doing is they just send you the list of things. And if you send it back to them, and most of it's there, they're happy with it, you won't even see them. They won't even come. But if you ignore that, or if there's stuff missing, then they'll come to your premises. But they can come to your premises at any point in time, and they have the right to enter and inspect your premises, speak to your employees, check if you've got your posters against the wall that you need, look at your employment contract, and they can issue compliance orders if there's anything missing. And compliance orders are like orders of the court. So you have to comply with a compliance order, or you will be called to the CCMA or the Labour Court, and then formal action will be taken, including fines or imprisonment even. So if you don't comply with the court order, the Labour Court can send you to prison. There's penalties and fines for non-compliance. So it's important to have all of these things in place, contracts that stipulate all of these things and how they work in your company, pay slips that stipulate the rates for overtime, Saturday work, that kind of thing, so that they can see that you are fully compliant. Common employer mistakes under the Basic Conditions of Employment Act: not keeping written contracts. That's the number one biggest problem. The law says that your employees are entitled to written particulars of employment, which contain all the types of leave, the rates for working overtime and Sunday work, all of those kinds of things. So you must have an employment contract by law. And if you don't have those in place, let us know and we'll assist you in putting those in place. Or if you have ones in place that are really old, let me have a look at them, because probably they're not compliant anymore. The next mistake is miscalculating leave days. As I explained, a lot of companies see 21 consecutive days of leave, and so they give the employees 21 working days of leave, which is way more. It's 15 working days if they work 5 days, or 18 working days if they work 6 days a week. So 21 working days is way more than what they are legally entitled to, which you can obviously do if you want to, but don't do it because you're making a mistake in your calculations. Then the next one is ignoring sectoral rules. If you have sectoral or bargaining council rules which apply to your industry and you do not comply, you can also be issued with compliance orders, fines, backdated corrections, which will cost you a lot of money. And the other one is failing to update policies. If you have an old leave policy that only refers to family responsibility leave and it doesn't even mention parental leave, it's no longer compliant and it needs to be updated. So if you need us to have a look at that, just also let us know, and we can look at it and update your policies and make sure that everything is nice and compliant. Then turning to the National or Minimum Wage Act, if you don't know, you should know, but if you don't know, a few years ago now, the National Minimum Wage Act was brought into power in South Africa, meaning that there's a level below which you may not pay employees. And the purpose was to reduce wage inequality and to protect low-income earners. So everyone that was earning below the minimum wage automatically has to be paid at the rate of the national minimum wage. And it increases every year, or sometimes it takes a bit longer, but it increases continually. So you have to increase your employees' wages continually to match the national minimum wages. Oops.